information I had, and I put together something that would be useful and deliverable online. And I went through the week, coached the kids. At the end of that week, I realized two things. Firstly, I really enjoyed this, and this could be something that I could continue doing. But secondly, there'd be a market for this. A lot of other kids would be off school. There's lockdown, so they can't go out, they can't do as many things as they want.
Hey guys, welcome to the Up Next podcast, where we are interviewing teen entrepreneurs that are making it big time in the startup world. We are asking the questions we know you want to hear. Up Next is an app made for teens where anyone can join or build a real life startup. Our guest is Mohammad Karim, age 19, from the UK. He is the founder of MMK Academy, which is an enterprise that trains children and adults as individuals or through schools, charities, and businesses to refine their soft skills so they can shine in whatever they pursue. Mohammad thought of this platform, this company, at the age of 18, something super original and exciting. So great to have you.
Oh, thank you very much for having me on. You do some great work with GenZ, so it's a pleasure to be on here.
How did you find yourself creating such a business? What sparked the idea?
So last year in March, lockdown hit the UK and university was pretty much cancelled for the next term. So I found myself with very little to do. And I'm the kind of person who always wanted to be doing something. So I thought, this period, don't have much on. It'd be great if I could start earning. So actually I started sending around my application and my CV to lots of little jobs around the area, supermarkets, etc. And my dad came up to me one day and said, look, we got a neighbor who came up to me and said, I know your son's involved in public speaking. I had been involved in teaching and coaching public speaking on a voluntary basis at youth groups, at mosque groups as well. And so I had a little bit of experience. And so this neighbor wanted me to coach their kid. And I said yes, because I'm one never to say no. I collated all the information I had and I put together something that would be useful and deliverable online. And I went through the week, coached the kids. At the end of that week, I realized two things. Firstly, I really enjoyed this, and this could be something that I could continue doing. But secondly, there'd be a market for this. A lot of other kids would be off school. There's lockdown, so they can't go out, they can't do as many things as they want. But soft skills online, soft skills had always been something parents wanted to refine. And so now was the perfect opportunity to do that. And it just seemed perfect to start something. So that was the birth really of the MMK public speaking as it was then.
Who do you consider your first mentor? What did they help you go through?
When it comes to mentorship, I think the first mentors I had were, and the best mentors to date, my parents. I think that, well, one of the things that we pride ourselves at the Academy is we never really tell people what to do. We facilitate an environment and give them all the tools that they need, but ultimately they come up with the answers themselves. And I think that was an ethos that my parents instilled in me, and something that I think is very useful because it's sustainable. You don't get told the answers all the time, because if you did, you'd soon find out that you get to a position where without them, you're stuck. But they build up resilience through providing the right framework, the right environment, and ultimately, with the right questions, with the right tools, that ensures that your growth is a lot more sustainable. And that's something that we try and implement at the Academy. But more recently, actually, a mentor has been an academic from London by the name of Mohammad Karim. And he gave me 3 bits of information when I started my business, which have proved to be absolutely invaluable. The first one is your social capital is as important as your economic capital. Right. So your social capital being the people you interact with, the network that you have, the relationships that you build. I think often when people start a business, they put in a lot of hard work, time and effort, and they want to see some sort of reward quickly. And economic reward is that quick sort of reward that they get. And social reward is not seen to be something of value in the short term, but actually in the long term, it's really useful. So remembering that social capital is as important as your economic capital, I think was really wise. The second bit of information then was that be entrepreneurial, but never, ever at the compromise of gaining knowledge. So when you're entrepreneurial, you've always got to be at the top of your game. You've got to be innovating, and innovation ultimately stems from knowledge. So you should never be in a situation where you say, I'm too busy to learn more. I think that was a really useful bit of advice as well. And thirdly, he said, have a big vision. That's really important. You've got to be ambitious, but take small steps towards it. Because too often people have a big vision and they take big steps towards it, and they get tired at the end of the first or the second big step, or they can't get to the end of that first big step, and so they give up. So big vision, but small steps.
How much time did it take for you to build the product that you launched?
The first product that we launched actually took a month to get out there. So we designed it in that month. We ensured that we tested it with a number of people. Important that we got it out there quickly, but also with all the relevant steps, because if we would have taken too long, then inevitably other people could have got a head start. But at the same time, if we got it out too quickly, then we wouldn't have done the due diligence necessary for it to be a good quality product. So a month is what it took to get everything together, to test it, and then to get it out there.
How much money was needed to build your first version?
In terms of the academy itself, it was initially quite low on investment. I think the main form of investment actually was time, and the time that I put in. The actual expenditure, well, the main one was the website. And I was very, very fortunate to have a friend who designed a very good quality website for me at a really, really discounted price. And I paid for that using my savings, which I had built up after I did some paper rounds for about 2 years back last year now. So that's how I paid for it, through savings from paper rounds.
How did you get those first users, customers to come aboard? What was that like?
It ultimately comes back down to your network again, because I think when you're small and you're not necessarily established, it's really, really important to tap into the communities around you. So I had a number of really influential communities. Firstly, my faith community. They have a WhatsApp chat where they get together all the entrepreneurs of the community, and you can put on there all of your activities and they get shared within their networks as well. So firstly, that community was very important. Secondly, my educational community. So I had my secondary school community, which I just got out of the system of, as in I just finished secondary school, but the community was still available to me. And I had my university community as well. So when you're small, I think, and you don't necessarily have a brand or a name to account for yourself, it's important to touch and reach out to the people that you know, and they will share it with their networks, but they can speak from personal experience. And I think that's really important, that if they can vouch for you and they can say good things about you from personal experience, people are much more likely to trust you and your product than if you're just to put a generic message out there saying, look, I've got this, come use my services. So these communities that I had were really, really influential at the beginning and still are now.
What is the next goal for you looking forward?
A couple of things that we're aiming for. I think firstly, really establishing the brand and solidifying the work that we have done over the last year. I think that's important. Be that through getting access to more big ticket events or increasing the amount of high quality networks that we build. I think that is going to be core to solidifying our brand. The second thing we want to do is really establish and build upon our social media presence as well. And the third thing that we want to do is a secret at the moment, but I can give you the information, the theme of youth-led and facilitating an environment for growth rather than telling people the answers. So it's going to be using the talent of youth to, in a way, consult and advise some top leaders around them. So that's what we can say so far.
What is one time you experienced a real fail moment? Just, everything went wrong. Did you fix it? Were you able to? Did you learn from it? What happened?
Fail moment wasn't necessarily one particular moment. I think it was actually over a little period of time. We started off as MMK Public Speaking, and for a very, very long time, we were told that by our clients that we offered so much more than public speaking, that we helped them with their confidence, with their leadership, etc. And that we were underselling ourselves by using the name MMK Public Speaking. And I'd been told a lot to rebrand. And I just thought, no, this is, we're an early company. It's good to establish ourselves, better to rebrand earlier, to explain people that we're not narrowly stuck on public speaking. It's an aspect of our work, but we do so much more. So I think maybe the haste to adapt was probably an area in which we could have done a bit better, but these things are areas that you can learn from. So there's no regrets at all with that.
What are 3 traits that you look for in a co-founder, business partner type of person?
First trait is they've got to be ambitious. I'd say that I'm quite ambitious myself, but I often like surrounding myself with ambitious people, because I think if you surround yourself with people who are a positive influence, that inevitably rubs off on you. So I'd be looking for someone who's ambitious. The second thing I'd be looking for actually is time efficiency. So when someone promises that they'll do something by a certain time, it's quite important for me that they do it, because not only does that help the general working of the business, but also it tells you a lot about their personality and their structure, because usually someone who's time efficient also has a very structured outlook. And I like that. I think that you need to have certain milestones that you need to reach at the end of maybe a month, 6 months, etc. And that's ultimately dependent on your ability to be time efficient. So time efficiency is the second trait. The third one is someone who isn't afraid to tell me that's rubbish. I think that constructive criticism is so important, and you need a diversity of thought within any organization. So the third aspect I'd be looking for is someone who has no issues in giving me constructive criticism, but I've got to underline the word constructive, because not all criticism is constructive. Some of it is not worth taking on board. So someone who can provide useful criticism and isn't scared to do so.
Could you name one advantage and one disadvantage of being such a young entrepreneur?
So as a young entrepreneur, and I think I'll talk about the business in general, because we are a youth-led business and our coaches are young as well. So I can talk I can answer this question from that perspective. So I think one advantage of being young is that we work with children and adults. So the advantage with adults is that often soft skills coaches come from or go into this as their second or third career. So often they've been in the working world and then they go on to do some soft skill coaching after. The problem is when you go into the working world, subconsciously, your mind puts certain constraints as to what you can do and what you can't do based on one particular experience at one particular firm. The advantage with being young, therefore, is you can provide these adults an untainted view, a more dynamic and ambitious view of what they can do. And it's a fact that we come at these challenges that our adult clients face from a fresh perspective that I think is our biggest advantage of being a youth coach, that we're not necessarily tainted by the constructs or the barriers that people might subconsciously put in their mind as a result of maybe one or two experiences that they face, but we can come at it from a youthful perspective and almost enable them to think like they did when they were a youth as well. So that's the advantage from the adult side. From the youth side, I think we can say that we are young and we weren't at the age of our clients that long ago. So we can relate to them a lot better. I think that's the advantage with being our age, that we can help both age categories, both adults and children, very well. In terms of the disadvantages, then, I think there's still a stigma that whenever you go up to an adult, they think, well, what can a child tell me? I've had so much experience. And we don't doubt that. You have had a lot more experience than us. But we contribute to, as I said, a diversity of thought, providing a fresh perspective, which is coming from outside the sphere that you're in. And sometimes you need advice from inside the sphere, but sometimes you need advice from outside the sphere as well. And that's our role. So the disadvantage is the stigma that exists, that a young person can't teach an older experienced person. But I think slowly that's being broken down.
What is a tech tool that you just can't go without? Maybe an app or a website, something that you always use.
I actually am quite simple when it comes to tech. I use it a lot, but I don't use any of the fancy stuff, as it were. So two um, apps that have been really crucial for me are Sheets. I love to budget. I love to spreadsheet. I think it gives me a really good idea of what I've done, both in terms of finances, in terms of number of clients. I like dealing with numbers. So Sheets is quite good for me. Excel would be the equivalent. But I think the second tool, which has really been helpful, is calendar on the phone. So I literally put every single event on my calendar, and that ensures that I never miss out on an event, and that I can prepare for an event because I get the notification a day before, etc. So I think calendar has been a huge lifesaver as well. So those two tools I think are really useful.
Which entrepreneurs inspire you the most these days? Who do you have your eye on?
It's got to be Elon Musk. Firstly, I share birthdays with him, so that's an added bonus. But secondly, I think that he is a phenomenal entrepreneur. So after he sold what was the equivalent of PayPal, he made a fortune to exactly, and he could have easily stopped there. But I think the fact that he invested all of the money that he had made from PayPal into these different ventures showed that he was putting his ventures sort of beyond himself, and I think that's quite an important trait. And I think that he is an entrepreneur who doesn't only want to change the way we do things, doesn't only want to change the way that we live, but he wants to change the way that we think. So I think the good entrepreneurs, they come up with inventions or solutions which change the way that we act. And then the great ones, they come up with solutions to change the way that we live. But the best ones, the Jeff Bezoses, the Elon Musks, they change the way that we live, without Amazon Prime, etc. But Tesla as well, SpaceX, I think we're not seeing the sort of essential benefit of it yet. Certainly some people are, but in the mainstream, it's not as mainstream as maybe Amazon, but I'm sure it will be in the future. I think it's changing the way that we think that Elon Musk really inspires me to do.
Which trait of yours do you feel is your weakest and you need to outsource it somehow with a coworker or maybe a tech platform?
It has been the website side of things, sort of outsourcing that. My coding abilities are not good enough to be able to build a website, nowhere near good enough. So that's been the area that I've wanted to outsource. I think also graphic design as well, so for the social media. I think more than not being necessarily good at it, I think that I enjoy it, but I just don't have the time for it. So I think that needs to be outsourced as well. And certainly I want to learn more about graphic design because I think that I enjoy working with, different colors and making things look nice in terms of graphics, able to develop that.
What single piece of advice do you have to give to those who are listening and looking to be in your place?
I think that passion coupled with a vision is a very powerful tool. I think passion is very important because it ensures that no matter what you do, even if you have ups and downs, you'll continue to stick at it because you're really passionate about what you do. But a vision is very important because you need to have some sense of direction as to where you want to go and what you want to achieve. Because passion without that sense of direction can take you around in circles and you'll end up in the same place that you started. So passion's important. If you want, passion is like the fuel, but vision is like the road. So with the fuel, a car can sort of drive, but without the road, that sort of sense of direction isn't as clear. So you need both of them, I think. And passion with a vision is a very, I'd say, powerful tool, which isn't a force to be reckoned with.
How important do you feel it is for young entrepreneurs to think about social change when creating a business?
very, very important, especially now. I think Gen Z is the generation which prides itself on putting social change at the front of anything that it goes out and does. And I think that especially going on into the future, it's not necessarily answering questions, individual questions about how we can change one or two things. It's about fitting into a bigger picture of these big problems out there. And so I think social change is going to be a very, very important focus going forward.
If you could have any superpower in the world, what would you pick?
Question. Well, am I allowed to say that I'd pick the ability to wish for unlimited superpowers? If there was one particular superpower, it would have to be invisibility. Thank you very much, and thank you for hosting the show so well.